What's up, friends? Dan Vega here, and today is a little bit different. Today is a special day. As you probably already seen by the title, we are doing a review and setup of the new MacBook Pro M1 Max. So I've had a couple weeks to kind of play around with this laptop, test it out, use it for different things. And if you're new around here, I am a software developer slash content creator. So my review, my setup is really going to be from those two perspectives. So just really quickly, what we're going to get into today. I've only been using it for 2 weeks, so this is really just an initial review, kind of my early thoughts on the laptop, as well as the second part, we're going to get into kind of a setup guide. So I wanted to put some instructions together for those of you who may be new to MacBooks and you're not quite sure how to go about setting one up. I'm going to take you through my step-by-step process and what I do when I get a new laptop. I always found these kind of tutorials very helpful, especially as a developer, because there are tools that I may not have been used to or familiar with. And this is a great opportunity to get introduced to new tools or processes when setting up a new laptop. So I hope you're excited today. Two things. We're going to go through a review and then a setup guide. What are we waiting for? Let's get right to it. All right, so let's start out by heading over to danvega.dev. Here you can find more information about me, kind of what makes me tick. I have a blog here. I have courses. I have a newsletter that gets delivered every single week. Well, every week-ish. So go ahead and sign up for that. It's a good way for us to kind of stay in touch. And you can find links to my different social media channels if you're curious about that. But the reason we're here is if you start to scroll down in my latest articles section at the time of recording this, obviously if you come here later, that won't be here. You can use the search bar above to find it, or you can click the link in the description below. But we're going to go to this MacBook Pro review, and I'm going to kind of use this to walk through some of my thoughts on the MacBook Pro. So first off, the TLDR, really quick, just up front, if you're curious what my thoughts are on it. This is by far the best laptop I've ever used, and it really has me excited for the future of Apple Silicon. So that's the skinny, that's the kind of, if you don't want to go through all of this, that's where I am with this so far. So I ended up getting the 14-inch MacBook Pro M1 Max, and I got it with 32 gigs of RAM and 1 terabyte of storage. This is kind of middle of the road, not the just standard one, not the maxed out one. Probably if I had some more money, I would have went to 64 gigabytes of memory. The storage is fine because I can always use external storage. But one of the things that I got asked early on was, okay, why would you choose the 14-inch and not the 16-inch? So for me, when Apple made this announcement, they said that you can get the same configurations in both the 14 and the 16. And for me, that really kind of sealed the deal. I was like, all right, I'm going to get the 14-inch because the only reason I would go up to the 16-inch is if there was a configuration that I couldn't get in the 14-inch. But once I was able to get what I wanted in the 14-inch, it made sense because my laptop is docked at my desk all day, most of the day, 99% of the time, right? I have my large external monitors on my desk. And when I'm not at my desk, it means I'm on the move, whether it's just going to a coffee shop, going in the backyard when it's nice here, moving over to my standing desk, or traveling. In those situations, I actually want the more portable machine. And the 14-inch is a very, very great size. I also mentioned this in the article, but it just feels heavier to it. It feels like a pro machine. I actually really like just the weight and the feel of the 14-inch. Something else I mentioned in here, the XDR display is nothing short of amazing. It's great. I actually have that open right now as a third screen. So I have my main 4K monitor, a widescreen monitor, and now I have this open as my third screen just because it's so good to look at. You'll hear a lot about the notch. I honestly don't even see it anymore. So when you go into full screen mode on certain apps, you won't even see the notch. when you do see it, you can kind of move your mouse through it, and I just don't, it shocked me. Well, I guess it doesn't really shock me anymore because people want to say whatever they want to say, but just how great of a laptop this is, and people seem to only focus in on the notch early on. But I'm telling you, it's a non-factor. Don't worry about it. I was really happy to see the function keys come back. I was never a big fan of the touch bar. It didn't really, the idea was great, context switching between applications. Let's change those keys. But I just never really found it useful. I mean, most of the time I just want to like turn up the volume or pause, something that I'm playing, or switch to another song, or change the brightness. These are things that I can do from the function keys. One addition is, if you look in the lower left-hand corner here, this function key with the globe on it actually serves as an emoji picker. And it seems, over 2 weeks, it's been very useful. There are a lot of times where I'm picking an emoji, whether it's writing something or doing something on Twitter. It's nice to have access to that. And now I know I can Command Shift Spacebar, but it was one key versus three, so I found that really, really handy. Obviously, really happy to see the ports come back. I think that was one of the bigger knocks on the previous M1 laptops. They only had 2 Thunderbolt 4 ports. This one has 3 with an HDMI, with the SD card slot. So the SD card slot, big for me. I'm doing some video here. I'll be able to pop out the SD card, pop it right into the machine without a dongle. Again, not a huge deal at home, but if you're ever on the move, you don't want to have all these dongles. So I was really happy to see that. So for me, here's the biggest thing: the MacBook Pro M1 Max performance. Everything I mentioned before is really good, but the star of this is just the performance. I heard similar, people talking about previous M1 laptops, the 2020 versions, and I heard they were great. And I was really holding out for this laptop just because I wanted the kind of next version. I'm usually staying away from like the first version of something. I like to kind of wait it out until the second version. So from day-to-day use, everything just feels smooth, fast, snappy. I used to open up Premiere Pro and then go take a coffee break before it would open up. Or IntelliJ is going through building its environment. I would do the same thing, go make some coffee. That isn't the case anymore. These things are just very snappy. Everything kind of, multitasking, doing those 2 things at once isn't a big deal. This wasn't the case with my 2015 or my 2019 MacBooks, which during the wintertime really doubled as space heaters, just because the second they got going, those fans kicked on, they got warm, and that's kind of what they sounded like to me. So from a developer productivity standpoint, again, just the speed of which everything is moving for me. When I open up IntelliJ, it just fires up. When it indexes, it goes very quickly. I find myself waiting around less, which is the goal, right? Particularly more responsive when I fired up IntelliJ and I had to do an index or I had to build something. So I tweeted this out, but I pulled down one of the big spring project, which is the Pet Clinic, and I was able to build this and run it in 1.95 seconds, which is just awesome. I mean, that was fast. The other thing I saw was, I saw some tweets kind of like this from developer productivity standpoint. This one says, hey, we recently found out the new M1 MacBooks cut our Android build times in half. That's 50%. That's crazy. So for a team of 9, about $32,000 of laptops will actually save $100,000 in productivity over 2022. The break-even point happens in 3 months. So too long, didn't read. Engineering hours are much more expensive than laptops, and I would completely agree with this. So trying to convince your boss that your team needs some new laptops, this is a good tweet to kind of reference. So the other thing I'll mention is, again, I am a content creator, whether it's writing or producing videos, courses. These are things that I like to work on. When it comes to content creation, this is the biggest reason I got the M1 Max. So I will say that if you're not doing any kind of video production, you could get by with just the base model. The M1 Max adds those 2 GPUs. And again, I'm not a processor geek, so I don't understand it completely, but it adds the ability, it kind of gives you the extra GPU that you will need for video production. So this was the biggest improvement for me. Again, when I'm opening Premiere Pro, it just fires up. When I throw some clips on the timeline, I can just immediately start scrubbing through them. I mean, it got to a point where in my 2015 personal laptop, I couldn't even edit anymore, because if I wanted to like change, edit some controls like this scale or something, it would just take forever just to like respond to that. And so that was a big deal for me. I talked about, I think I sent a tweet out on this, but I exported a 16-minute YouTube tutorial in like 2.5 minutes. And that was insane. Like that, these are little things that don't seem like a lot, but over the course of a day, over the course of a week, over the course of a month, this is a lot of time that you're saving. And I know there's stats done on this, but every time that you kind of get interrupted in a workflow, you're not just losing those couple of minutes. You're losing, 20, 30 minutes of productivity because you've kind of gotten taken out of the flow of your work. So these things are all very important for me. I don't want to work long hours. I don't have the ability to work long hours. I've got 2 little kids at home, so time is of the essence. When I'm working, I want to make sure that I'm very productive, and this is really helping out. So I'll come back to the developer setup in a second. The one thing I did want to mention was the price. So if there is a con that I have on it, these are not cheap laptops. The configuration I got is not cheap. I feel pretty fortunate to be in a position to be able to buy one. Most of my life, I've not been able to buy the latest tech. This is something that I'm very grateful for. And the only reason I was able to get this is because I do own my own business. And we're getting towards the end of the year here, and this is a good time for me to go ahead and write things off for that business. So I haven't actually used the MacBook Air, the M1 from 2020, but I heard they're really good. So if you want a starting place, those might be a good place to go on a budget. Again, if you're not live streaming, video editing, whatever, and you want one of these new MacBook Pros, maybe look at one of the base models. You don't need the M1 Max. If you want more memory, you may have to move to it, but those are some things to consider. So now let's go ahead and take a look at this link here. This link is just a little bit of a backstory. I originally wanted to create videos around each step of my setup process, and I quickly realized that was going to take way too long. It takes me a long time to get a single video out. I didn't have the patience to do that. So if somebody wants to send me another MacBook Pro, I will do that. But this one was mine, and I really just wanted to get it set up so I could start using it and then kind of give you guys my feedback on it. So what I did is what I've been doing the last few years is just document my setup process in a GitHub repo. And we can walk through that together, take a look at that, and hopefully it'll give you some ideas on how to go ahead about setting your laptop up. All right, so here we are. Again, I'll have the link for this repository in the description below. If you want to go back and look at the main repository, you'll see over the years I've done this, but the one that we're looking at today is in the 2021 folder. So again, we talked about the specs. This is a 14-inch Apple M1 Max, 32 gigs. One of the things I recommend right away is getting AppleCare. If you haven't purchased AppleCare already, what are you waiting for? I think you have 90 days support on the machine, but just please spend the money. Now what you can do is actually, you don't have to buy the full AppleCare support. If you want to just pay $99 a year, you can, which is the route I ended up going for. So if you purchase that, you can head up to Apple, About This Mac, and Support. So the little Apple icon in the upper left-hand corner, About This Mac and Support, and you can verify your coverage in there. So I have some links here that were also in the article. The first thing I do is set this up on my desk, connect my external monitors, hook up all my peripherals. So these are kind of all the things on my desk. These are affiliate links on Amazon at no cost to you. They're just going to help support this channel. So if you're interested in those things, go ahead and check them out. Next, what we do is we go into system preferences. So there are a few things that I like to customize, and these may not be for you. These were for me. The mouse, I like to update the scrolling speed. It's too slow when it's by default. The trackpad, so I uncheck the scroll direction. It is natural, the way that you scroll on the trackpad. I don't feel like it's natural, so I always switch this and uncheck this. Dock, I just kind of customize the dock, which is the icons at the bottom so that you can kind of change the size and how they scroll. I update my avatar. You can change things like the theme. So do you want it to be light or dark or auto? Those are some things that you can do as well. Next, I go through any Mac OS updates. Most, 12.0.1 came out. So that was the first thing I did was go ahead and update to that. It's good to go ahead and get that out of the way. App Store. This is a good time to go ahead and check to see if you need to update any apps. There are some apps pre-installed, so there may be some updates. I also like to remove some apps, especially if storage is at a premium. I only got a 1 terabyte, so I don't have the luxury of just throwing everything on this hard drive. I like to remove some of the apps that I'm not going to use, like GarageBand, Numbers, Pages, iMovie. These are things I'm just going to get rid of. You can manually remove these apps. Unlike Windows, if you're coming from like a Windows environment, there's no just simple get rid of this app for me. There are applications out there like App Cleaner, which is free, or Clean My Mac, which I'm a big fan of. You do have to pay for that. It's a yearly subscription of like $34, but it does so many great things. I highly recommend it. I installed that right away. This is one of the things I use. So the first thing I did was get rid of GarageBand. If you have Clean My Mac, it will get rid of that and all the other folders in there. If you can't use App Cleaner for that, App Cleaner only works with third-party applications. So GarageBand is an Apple application. So you will need to remove that manually. So here's some instructions for that. The reason I pick on GarageBand is it's a very large application, and if you're not going to use it, you might as well get rid of it. So I like to customize Finder so that I can get to my frequently used folders as fast as I can. So here I am in Finder, and you see along the left, I have these favorites. So I have a dev folder, this is where all my code goes. I have a YouTube folder. I have a specific repo that I use a lot, which is my website. I have a place for screenshots. These favorites are something I do right away. Anything that I know I'm going to use a lot of, I kind of set those favorites up. And then 2 quick shortcuts here. If you're in Finder, Command-Shift-H will always take you home. Command-Shift and period will reveal hidden folders and files. So 2 quick things right there in Finder. Okay, so the next thing I do is install apps while I'm in the App Store. If there's anything I can install outside of Homebrew, I do. The only thing I'm installing here is Xcode. There are some manual installations for a couple things that I use. I use Ecamm Live, which I'm using right now to record this. I use this for recording locally or broadcasting live. And I also use the Elgato controller. Oh, that's spelled that wrong. Control Center. And this is what controls both of my key lights here. So these are manual installs that I got to go through. So anything that I can install via Homebrew, I will. So if you're not familiar with Homebrew, if you're coming from Windows, there's an application called Chocolatey, which does something similar, but Homebrew was first. This is really kind of the way that you install applications. So the missing package manager for Mac OS or Linux. Basically, you'll run this install, and what does it do? Well, now from the command line, you can say brew install and then the application that you want to use. So this is a great way to install it. So you can do these manually from the command line, but what this also allows you to do is to script things. So if you have 10 applications that you know you need to install on a bunch of machines, you can write a script and do this over and over again. I don't do this from my personal standpoint because I feel like by the time I get another laptop, things are going to change a little and I'm going to have different things that I'm going to install. So I kind of like going through this manually, but I still use Homebrew to install. I don't want to go to the that particular application's website, download an installer, run that, move it into the applications folder. It's a whole lot of mess. So Homebrew kind of simplifies that for me. Before you do that, though, you have to open up a terminal and run this Xcode select install. It's just something that doesn't get installed with Xcode. It's not even Xcode. What is Xcode specific? But you need it for macOS. So just go ahead and run this. It installs the command line tools package. It consists of 2 components, the SDK and tools such as Clang, which are installed in user bin. So now that you have that, you can install Homebrew. So go ahead and install Homebrew, head over to the website. Before we start installing a bunch of applications, we got to talk about the shell. So the shell, the default shell in macOS is now ZSH. It was Bash for a while. Now it's ZSH. So in the last laptop I got, I finally decided to get with the times, stop being an old man, and use ZSH. And by using that, I also wanted to use Oh My ZSH, which is this great little unleash your terminal like never before. So it's open source. It's a framework for managing ZSH configurations. It comes bundled with thousands of helper functions, helper plugins, themes, etc. So one of the things that I used to do with Bash all the time is you set up, Bash aliases, things like git, right? Like I don't want to type out git commit -m and then the message that I'm going to commit with this commit. So you could set up a alias for that, but why do that every time? So one of the plugins that comes in with Oh My ZSH is the Git plugin, and I have all these commands like gcmsg. That is a shortcut for doing what I just talked about. GAA, git add all. So these are a bunch of aliases that come with the Git plugin, and there are tons of plugins for ZSH. So I'm not doing it justice. Go ahead and take some time to look through here, but it is a must-have. So we're setting up Oh My ZSH. Here are the plugins that I'm using. I'm using this spaceship theme, so I get this cool looking. The spaceship is actually something that you just have to set up, but you're getting a nice minimal theme here. You also get, again, auto completion, all these plugins. So a lot of cool stuff with Oh My ZSH. With that, I don't use normal terminal. I install iTerm2. If you want to check that out, here's a link to our website. Now to install it, here's what I talked about before. With Homebrew, I don't have to go out to their website, download it, install it, drag it into the applications folder, delete anything that was done. All of this is handled for Brew for you. Now, Brew install, the -- cask, is that utility that will go ahead and move it into the applications folder for you and clean up anything. So what I want to do is I'm saying brew install -- cask iTerm2. So it's going to go out, download it, install it, move it into the applications folder. So once I have iTerm set up, there are some resources here to get some color schemes for iTerm2. And that's what I did to kind of make it look how it is. So I go through and kind of customize iTerm2 because I spent a lot of time in the terminal. So it's good to go ahead and set that up now. Okay, so now that we are there, it's time to do some development setup. Not just development, but just general. Here's all the applications I want to go ahead and install right now. So I'm going to go through and install Git, Google Chrome, Visual Studio Code. Now, the good thing about these first two is these two are something that took me a long time in the past to set up. So Google Chrome, you'd have to go in, let's set up all our bookmarks, let's customize with any extensions that we need. With Google Chrome these days, you can sign into a profile. So if you're doing that now, when you install Google Chrome here, just sign into your profile. You have all your bookmarks, all your extensions, your history. That is a great way to kind of save some time set up. Same thing with Visual Studio Code. Visual Studio Code took me a long time in the past to set up because there are extensions, there are themes, there are keyboard shortcuts, there are preferences. And those things take some time to go ahead and set up. But you have the ability to go ahead and persist all of those settings across multiple machines. And that's built right into Visual Studio Code. So that's something I would take a look at. IntelliJ Docker Table Pluses for managing SQL databases, NoSQL, writing queries. Rectangle is this ability to kind of, it's a window management tool for Mac OS. So if I want to put 4 things up on a screen and I want them all in 25%, or if I want to split screen, that has really helped me with that. Kaleidoscope is a great diff utility. I can't even call it a utility. It's a really great program. Postman for going ahead and testing out REST applications. I'm a big fan of Notion. I use it for everything. The Adobe Creative Cloud. I use Photoshop. What else? Premiere Pro, After Effects, Lightroom, XD. So I'm a big fan of the Creative Cloud. I have a subscription to that, probably like $50 a month, but you get everything with it. Very much worth the money. Zoom Crisp, which is helping with the audio that we're doing right now. So what it will do is will try and filter out any of the background noise. And that's very helpful, especially when you're at home working with kids and things going on in the background. So that's a big one. Then just a few utilities for the command line, tree, bat, HTTP. So again, I talked about Chrome. These are some plugins I like. You can go through, check those out. Visual Studio Code. Here are some fonts, themes, extensions. I think I've done videos on this stuff in the past, so I won't bore you with that. Node and NPM, if you're in that world, if you need Node or NPM, you probably do for something at this point. One of the best ways to install this is by using Node Version Manager, or NVM. So this has a few advantages over just installing it from Brew or directly downloading it from Node's website. One, you can install multiple versions of Node. You can set a default version. You can easily switch between versions. More importantly, I think it installs this in your home directory, so you don't need special privileges. If you install it from Node's website, you'll find yourself running sudo a lot of the times when you have to install packages globally. So once you have, you can install, once you have Node Version Manager installed, you're going to have to install that manually from their website. Once you do that, you can say, hey, NVM install stable. And whatever the latest stable version is, it will go ahead and install that. If you wanted to, oh, and that's wrong. This is a while ago. This is like 17 now. Or you can say NVM install LTS. And the current LTS is like 16.13.0 or something. So that's really good. Once that's installed, I will go ahead and, I don't know why these are not on separate lines, but I'll install some global packages that I use a lot of. I use Gridsome for my website, so I'll install that. This package called TLDR, TypeScript, ESLint, Lodash, etc. So whatever you normal global packages you might install, you can install those now. So we have Git. We need to go ahead and set up Git config. So I want to set up my username, my email, because at this point, I'm probably going to be wanting to pull down some repositories. So I got to set that up, and then we need to generate the SSH key for this machine. So I'm using GitHub, and they happen to have some really excellent documentation on this if you're new to doing this. So you have to set up an SSH key and then kind of link that to your GitHub account so that when you pull a repository down, you don't need to authenticate every time. All right, it does the authentication for you. So like NVM, SDKman is another great software development kit manager. This one manages all my other software kits like Java and Groovy and Maven, Spring, Kotlin, etc. So you can go ahead and install that from the website and then just do something similar. You say SDK install Java and then the version. In this case, I'm installing 15. But usually the latest versions of Java are installed. So if you just said SDK install Java, it would install the latest version for you. And if you're trying to figure out which versions are available, you can always say, hey, go ahead and list out all of those different versions for me. So finally, I have the Adobe Creative Suite. Again, I talked about it. These are all the applications I use when I'm creating content. This really helps me out, so I installed that. So there you have it. That is my initial review of the MacBook Pro M1 Max. We had a good chance to sit down and talk about some of the things I really enjoy about this laptop. Again, it's very early on. I can't wait to use it some more. Hopefully, I'll go ahead and let you guys know some more thoughts as I come across them. Also, if you've picked one of these laptops up, please go ahead and reach out to me. Let me know what you like about the laptop. I'm also curious to know if my setup guide helped at all. We had a chance to walk through the setup guide that I used to go ahead and set up a new laptop. Let me know if you enjoyed that. Were there things that were missing? Maybe some things that we can add to it. Again, it is out on GitHub. If you want to go ahead and send me a pull request, that's great. But overall, just reach out to me. Let me know if you liked this video. If you did, something that would help me out a lot is just give me a thumbs up on there. Subscribe to the channel. Hit that bell notification so you don't miss another video. And as always, friends, happy coding.